So we are going back to freshman year of college. Lots of lessons learned the
Oh my
freshman year of
gosh.
college,
Are you
right?
kidding me? All of them. All lessons that well not learned, but should have, could have, would have saved a lot of help if I learned it then, right?
Yeah. So take me there.
Okay. University of Georgia, go Dogs. I've been leading worship for a few years and leading into college. Even like going to college and praying through what college and trying to choose, like that's a big life decision at that point. I
Yeah.
mean, for anyone, no matter what, it's a big life decision, but there's also a sense of like grappling with the future that I've never had to walk through. I haven't had to trust God with the next steps because I was living in my parents' house since I was 0 years old. So
Right.
there's a lot of obvious growing up, but there's also the first steps you take trusting God for me when I wasn't in my parents' house, and a whole lot more responsibility on my plate, and also a lot of questions like, okay, is this the right choice? And part of that was because I've been writing songs for the previous 3 years and leading worship at conferences with
Yeah.
a good friend of mine, and I really had a sense that no matter what, whether it be a vocation or a job or anything like that, I knew music was going to be a part of my life, even if it's just worshiping at my piano by myself, right? But I felt like one of the reasons that, you know, I went to that university that year at that time was because there's going to be some continuation of songs and music, and it took only a few months in college to realize that everything was not going as planned.
In what way?
And well, nothing was happening. Like,
Okay.
what am I doing now? Where's the opportunity to get plugged in some ministry or whatever? And it didn't happen. And I have a memory of being so frustrated and disappointed that I showed up to this stage of my life and it just felt like I was waiting.
Hmm.
And so I was praying about it a lot. And one night I was particularly frustrated.
You were frustrated. You were waiting.
I
Was
was
it
waiting. I
for
was,
music to take off, or what was it in your 18-year-old mind was like, this should be happening and it's not?
it wasn't like I was hoping my music would take off. It was more like I wanted to feel a sense of direction for my life that I didn't feel.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, I'm actually feeling the opposite. I'm feeling a bit confused of what the next steps are, and
Hmm.
felt like it was clear at this school. I'm writing songs. And it felt like for the first time in my life, I was aimless,
Wow.
which is an awful feeling.
Sure.
Like no one loves that feeling. And so what I did with those feelings, I took them to God. And I think, already that is an important part of my life
Huge.
and something I do with my music a lot. Whether I put those songs out or not, there's
Hmm.
plenty of songs that have been like, okay, this is what I'm feeling. I'm taking it to you, but I'm not happy about it. So
Yeah.
let's talk. And one night, um, as my aimlessness had increased as a few months into my freshman year of college, I think like everyone that goes to college your freshman year, it's like a borderline, you know, identity disorder or
Yeah.
something. You're just like, I don't know who I am anymore. There's so many people. Like,
It's a real testing of your faith. I mean,
oh
for
yeah,
especially, I assume you grew up in the church,
I
or
did. My dad's a pastor.
okay. So was there that sense of like you'd been in this sort of protected space of, Sunday to Sunday, you're a pastor's kid,
Completely. Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
now
I mean,
you're
all the things. There they are.
yeah.
And I had so I was reading the scriptures a lot, I'm praying a lot. And this is coming across like I'm walking around praying all the time. I'm not doing that. But in the moments where in those months I'm just talking to God, trying to figure out what I'm doing. Why am I here? Am I here
Yeah.
to just choose a major and go on with my life, or what's the purpose of me being here? And I felt like I had a sense one night that, and this perspective is what my moment is,
Okay.
that set the tone for the next 20 years. My prayer was something to the tone of, you told me I was going to be here and I figured we'd be doing this and this and this, and now nothing's happening and you're not talking to me and I'm, all the things.
Mm.
And I just had this sense that God was saying, Patrick, you're 18 and I have a lifetime to complete what I started in you.
Mm.
And that's all I heard.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, I realized that God plays the long game.
Yeah.
And that connected to so many areas of my life. And I don't just mean career. It was like, wow, there's a reason why the scriptures talk about finishing a race
Mm-hmm.
and not just running quickly at the beginning.
Right.
And there's a
Enduring.
reason, yeah, enduring. And there's a reason why we experience God's faithfulness, because there's a reason to doubt it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you can only learn to trust when you have the option to not. And I had a friend that said this. I thought this was so powerful. And in retrospect, he was like, it seems like every chapter that we go through, it feels like the same faith, the same yes to God with just more on the line.
Mm. Yeah.
Like your yes isn't actually different now. There's just more to lose. And
Mm.
so you learn, okay, I know what it feels like to trust God, being a preacher's kid, living in their house. And I'm like, okay, now I know what it feels like to say yes to God, going to college, still don't have a job or anything. And then I felt like I experienced what it felt like to say yes to God when I met my wife, Meg,
Wow.
and to trust him as I'm learning to become a husband. And I learned what it felt like to trust God when we signed our first mortgage, the biggest financial decision we've ever had. We're like, did we ruin our lives? Then I learned what it felt like to say yes to God and trust him with kids. It's the same yes with more on the line.
Yeah.
And
Now, when you had that moment that night, was it like a light bulb goes on, or was it quieter and more subtle than that?
it was subtle.
Yeah.
It was subtle because all of my energy was, and my prayers up to that point was just, it was like out loud anxieties.
Mm.
And this felt more like a quiet trust.
Yeah.
And even now, I mean, so 38, this is 20 years later from that moment. I still think about that moment when I'm like, I'm a little disappointed that this hasn't happened, or, things don't look like whatever. Like you just
Mhm.
fill in the blank for your own life. And then I remember, I have a lifetime to finish what I started.
Yeah.
And he's not in a hurry.
And he's not on our timeline.
Yeah, which is annoying to me.
Can we
He's
schedule
just,
this for
yeah, I
sometime in the
know.
next 6 months?
If he was in a rush, he would have, even like Jesus would have done things differently.
Mm.
And I think that's a really profound perspective. And it's one that like you make different choices when you're looking at a lifetime walking with God. Like burnout and, your adrenal glands collapsing because we're so used to momentum and pace and energy and all these things, because we equate that with the blessing of God, and somehow that means God's doing something in our life because things are happening quickly. There's a lot of things that happen quickly that are not pleasant things.
Yeah.
Um, I just talked to someone. Cancer spreads quickly.
Yeah.
Just because it's quick doesn't mean that's a sign of anything
Mhm.
good necessarily. Um, and so there's a cadence and a pace and even like a gait to walking with Jesus that doesn't have to be an anxious grumbling.
Hmm.
And I started to learn that at 18, and I'm continuing to learn that at 38. That if you want to walk with Jesus, you better get ready to slow down. You can feel the rest of God knowing, okay, your terms, your time, and I can either fill the gap with chosen anxiety or I can fill the gap with a yes of trust.
Yeah. No, when did you see your circumstances start to change at
No,
all?
none of them changed.
Okay, I kind of love that because I feel like that's
Nothing changed.
usually how it goes. Like, I
I
love that that
mean,
was the answer
no,
because
nothing.
we want circumstances to change quickly, but what changed was your mindset and your ability to trust God when nothing else changed.
100%. And, part of the sobering realization I had, and it grieves me that that I noticed this about myself, but I was like, oh, I'm like praying to God in hopes that I get what I want. I'm like using him.
Mhm.
I wouldn't have said it that way. I would have been like, oh, this is just what prayer and trust looks like. Like, no, that's actually not trust. Complaining and grumbling till you get what you want. That's not trust. But now when I look at my kids, I'm like, wow, I would love to in some way model for them that type of trust. And hopefully it instills in them a sense of like, okay, we got, you never know how much time you have, but
Yeah.
regardless of how much time you have, you can always have a lot of trust.
That's awesome. How old are your kids?
11, 10, and 6.
Okay.
It is wild in our house right now. It is wild.
I don't know if it ever stops being wild. I have a 14-year-old and 11-year-old. Wild.
No, yeah, teens. So that scares me a little bit. Here we
You
come.
know,
I'm ready. It's close.
like,
It's close
talk
for
about
me.
trust.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Trust, the more freedom that they get and the more their little journey to independence.
Uh huh.
Take yourself back to 18. It's
Here
like,
we
wait till
are.
your kids are
Oh,
18.
I mean, I can't.
And
I can't think about it. I'll
they
get
got to
too
trust
emotional.
God for themselves, but you as dad have to find a new level of trust
Yeah,
too,
I know. It'll be the same yes with more on the line.
right? Snapshot Testimony is a Moody Radio podcast. For more on Pat, check out patbarrettmusic.com. You can also watch this episode and others on the Snapshot Testimony YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe and leave a comment letting me know what you think. I'm your host, Allie Domerson, and together we're sharing the moments that shape a life of faith in Christ. Thanks for listening.